Hi guys, and in this quick tutorial we're going to be looking at creating soft IK. Now as you can see, soft IK allows you to produce what they call in animation something called secondary motion, and that's the movement of my little creature's antennae here, without having to do any difficult keyframing or lengthy keyframing that could take more time than you have. So in this little tutorial we're going to create this little creature here. So I'm just going to go to File and New. Okay, and I'm going to start with a sphere. Now, obviously the creature and character, depending on what it is that you are going to do, will be different. But for this instance, I'm just going to use a sphere and I'm going to create that character that you've just seen. And then I'm going to make it editable. Okay, and then I'm just going to rotate my object 90 degrees that way. Okay, and then I'm going to select its front polygons. And then just scale them to 0 so they're nice and flat to give me a nice base to extrude. So M and T and extrude out, M and W to extrude inner, and then M and T again to just give us that little bit of a lip. And obviously again, it doesn't really matter, it's just down to your preference as to what character you want to produce. And then I'm going to select two polygons, okay, both sides there and there. Maybe I should go for the ones further back. Okay, and this is going to be the base of my antennae. So if I just press M and T, that will give my extrusions. Okay, and then what I can do is I can create myself a nice extrude, say about, say I think 40 would do. So I'm just going to undo that, change that to 40. Okay, and press enter, and then I'm just going to click new transform, okay, a couple of times, so I've got 4 or 5, and then to create the little bobbly bits on the end, I'm just going to go M and W to extrude inner, but this time I'm going to make sure that the polygons go out, M and T to extrude again to give me the little end parts, and then to round everything out and soften it all, create a subdivision surface and drag and drop. Okay, and this is my little character there. Again, you don't have to worry about the front bit if you're just interested in doing the soft IK. It's relatively easy to do, but this just gives you that sort of feel for what the soft IK could do. Now, creating material just really quickly, I just want to create a nice orangey colour, literally change its colour really. We should go for a nice bright orange. I shall turn luminance on as well, so that we've got a nice brightish colour for my little creature. Okay, and just drag and drop that. There we go, not too bad at all. So now for the bit to do with rigging. So I'm going to go up the top to my characters tool, and then I'm going to the joint tool. This is what we're going to use to create the joints. Now, pressing F4 to get to the front view, I'm going to create myself the joints. Now, because I've got two, I don't want to have to worry about doing this twice. So with my joint tool selected, I have some symmetry options here in my attributes manager. Okay, and you can choose the symmetry that you are going to want to use. And I say that I want to draw, because I want it to draw, and it's the YZ plane, which is exactly the one, which means that the YZ will be here and the Z plane facing me. So one more thing to do is just to untick root null, as I don't need it, and I shall control click where I want the base of my root to start. So if I click there, you can see that that one is instantly created, and then I'm going to want to create a nice little joint every time I've got myself one of those polygons to act as the end, because this is where it's going to deform along. Normally you would have a lot more geometry, but my subdivision surface is going to do that for me. Now that's created both of those nicely, and because I had the sphere selected when I did it, it's created all of the joints for me. If you didn't have the sphere selected when you created those joints, just simply drag and drop them in. It's not a problem, it makes no difference. Okay, so here we have our little character with all of its joints in. I'm just going to make sure by looking at the side view that they are where I want them to be, and they're not. So selecting those two parents and then just moving them along. and then I'm just going to rotate them so that they fit into my character. There we go, perfect. Okay, so now what we need to do is combine the two together. At the moment we have a separate joint structure and a separate sphere. One will not currently affect the other. So what we need to do is do something that calls bind the two together. So I need the sphere selected, not the subdivision surface, but the sphere, because this is what actually contains the mesh. And then I'm just going to shift click the very bottom to ensure that all of those are highlighted. So I need the sphere, which is the mesh, and the joints, which will deform it. And then I simply go to characters at the top, commands, and click bind. Now this does two things. It will create a skin object there under the sphere, and it will create a weight expression tag also on the sphere. To check if it works, simply click one of the joints and then rotate. And if it moves, you know that you have bound one to the other, which is perfect. Okay, this means that when these joints bend, so will my mesh. Now what we need to do is create an IK chain. Now IK stands for inverse kinematics. To create an IK chain, we're going to need to have the joint selected, and then I'm going to go to characters, commands, create IK chain. Then I'm going to do the second one, so I'm going to keep joint 1, going to characters, commands, and create IK chain. Now it creates these wonderful little IK expressions, which I shall use in a minute, and then it creates these two null objects, the joint goals. Those aren't useful for what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to select both of those and press delete to get rid of them. Okay, so selecting both of those, because I want them to have similar properties, you can obviously adjust them differently depending on what you want to do. I'm going to go to the Dynamics tab of my IK tag, and then I'm going to press Enable. Now if I press play, you will see that they've got forces being affected them, and that force is gravity. You can choose how much gravity has an effect on these using the dynamic things here. So the rot hold, if I just sort of increase that, you can see increases how much hold that actually has. And if you go to 100%, you can see that that doesn't move at all. Whereas if I drop it down to say 51%, you can see that there's a little bit of wobble. But that little bit of wobble means that if I go to my subdivision surface and I go to rotate, that little bit of wobble is enough that whatever movement you do, there is going to be some form of movement there from the IK chains trying to keep up just a little bit. If I just make myself a little animation really fast, so I'm just going to reset those coordinates back to 0. Imagine if it was over there, and then very quickly it was over there. So if I just have a look at that really fast. Okay, not fast enough, I think maybe I want it half that speed. Or twice that speed rather, marvellous. So I'm just going to select both of those, and then I'm going to command drag a couple of copies so that we've got some nice sharp movements for my character to be picking up. So shake, 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 marvellous. Now if I select both of those, you can see that if I lower that root hold, we've got some interesting movement there. And this drag as well, if you increase that, you can see how long it takes for it to catch up to the point where actually it never really does. So if you want it to have less drag and follow a little bit more, then you're going to want to use that drag. The root hold you can whack up to 100%, like I say, and it won't give you any movement, and then perhaps you can control just how far it droops down. Sort of like a deflating balloon in a way. This position hold chooses how much the joints stay in the position that they are in together, and the moment you change that, okay, it will change how those joints work. I suggest not doing that too much, as it's going to completely change the way that your bones are created and that skeletal structure on the inside. Changing the strength changes how much it stays sort of put. And again, you can whack that straight up as well to give you a much more rigid sort of antennae look. And again, you're going to need to sort of play with these two to see how much you are going to want to experiment with that feeling that you want to give it that real secondary movement for your character. Well, I hope that was useful for you and you will find a good use for the soft IK functions for whatever character or creature that it is that you are creating. Enjoy, and I will catch you next time.